They will die to protect me, my people.
On October 20th, 2011, Muammar al-Qaddafi, the longest-serving leader in Africa and the Arab world, was captured and killed by rebel forces near his hometown of Sirte. The eccentric 69-year-old dictator, who came to power in a 1969 coup, headed a government that was accused of numerous human rights violations against its own people and was also linked to terrorist attacks, including the 1988 bombing of a Pan Am jet over Lockerbie, Scotland. Gaddafi, who was born into a Bedouin family in June 1942, attended the Royal Military Academy in Benghazi as a young man and briefly received additional military training in Great Britain. On September 1st, 1969, he led a bloodless coup that overthrew Libya's pro-Western monarch, King Idris, who was out of the country at that time. Gaddafi emerged as the head of the new revolutionary government, which soon forced the closing of American and British military bases in Libya. He took control of much of the nation's oil industry and tortured and killed his political dissenters. He also made an unsuccessful attempt to merge Libya with other Arab nations. Gaddafi began funding terrorists and guerrilla groups around the globe, including the Irish Republican Army and the Red Army faction in West Germany. Additionally, in the mid-1970s, Gaddafi, whose followers referred to him by such titles as Brother Leader and the Guide of the Revolution, published his political philosophy, which combines socialist and Islamist theories. Known as the Green Book, the manifesto became required reading in Libyan schools. During the 1980s, tensions increased between Gaddafi and the West. Libya was linked with the April 1986 bombing of West Berlin, Germany.
We have considerable evidence over quite a long period of time that Gaddafi has been quite outspoken about his participation in urging on and supporting terrorist acts, kind of warfare as he has called it.
Nightclub frequented by an army military personnel. 2 people, including a US soldier, were killed in the attack, while some 155 others were wounded. The United States swiftly retaliated by bombing targets in Libya, including Gaddafi's compound in Tripoli, the nation's capital. President Ronald Reagan called Gaddafi the mad dog of the Middle East.
This mad dog of the Middle East has a goal of a world revolution, Muslim fundamentalist revolution, which is targeted on many of his own Arab compatriots.
On December 22, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 traveling from London to New York was blown up over Lockerbie, killing 259 people on board and 11 people on the ground. The US and the Britain indicated 2 Libyans in the attack, but Gaddafi initially refused to turn over the suspects. He also declined to surrender a group of Libyans suspected in the 1989 bombing of a French passenger jet over Niger that killed 170 people. Subsequently, in 1992, the United Nations imposed economic sanctions on Libya. These sanctions were removed in 2003 after the country formally accepted responsibility for the bombings but admitted no guilt and agreed to pay $2.7 billion settlement to the victims' families. Gaddafi's government had turned over the Lockerbie suspects in 1999. One was eventually acquitted and the other convicted. Again in 2003, Gaddafi agreed to dismantle his weapons of mass destruction. Diplomatic relations with the West were restored by the following year. Gaddafi remained a deeply controversial figure who traveled with a contingent of female bodyguards whose colorful robes and hats or military uniforms covered with medals, and on trips abroad set up a Bedouin-style tent to receive guests. After more than 40 years in power, Gaddafi saw his regime begin to unravel in February 2011 when anti-government protests broke out in Libya following the uprisings in Egypt and Tunisia earlier that year. Gaddafi vowed to crush the revolt and ordered a violent crackdown against the demonstrators.
No demonstration at all in the streets. No one against us. Against me for what? Because I am not president.
But then
They love me, all my people with me. They love me all.
However, by August, rebel forces with assistance from NATO had gained control of Tripoli and established a transitional government. Gaddafi went into hiding, but on October 20, 2011, he was captured and shot by the rebel forces.